"There's no room for you," my son-in-law said, blocking the dining room door. "In the house I built with my own 2 hands." He thought Thanksgiving was for business. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson. If you're listening, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and explain how a simple apple pie started a war. The smell hit me first. Roasted turkey and cinnamon. It always meant home. It meant my late wife, Martha. She loved Thanksgiving more than Christmas. I gripped the pie carrier tighter. Inside was her famous apple cranberry pie. I baked it every year since she passed. Her recipe card was faded, stained with butter and thyme. It was the only thing that kept her close. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house, a grand Victorian, gingerbread trim, a wide porch. I should know. I built it back up from the studs. 40 years as a contractor. I built homes for other families. But this one was different. This one was personal. When my daughter Emily married James 3 years ago, I wanted them to have the perfect start. Martha had died just months before the wedding. I was grieving. Lost. I poured everything into that house. My savings, my sweat, my heart. It was an investment, I told myself. A foundation for their future. I never transferred the deed. It was a safety net. Just until James got his tech startup off the ground. He was always talking about the next big thing, the next round of funding. He was always talking, but I held the keys. I just never thought I'd have to use them. The street was choked with cars, Teslas, Mercedes, cars that cost more than my retirement account. I had to park my old Ford F-150 3 streets over. It felt wrong. Emily had promised a quiet dinner. "Just us, Dad," she had said. And maybe James's parents. This wasn't quiet. This looked like a gala. I squeezed past Alexis parked halfway on the lawn. My lawn. I walked up the stone path I had laid myself, brick by painful brick. I knew something was wrong before I even opened the door. The air felt too heavy, too still. The sound hit me next. Loud music, laughter that sounded too sharp, too forced, the clinking of dozens of glasses. This wasn't Thanksgiving. This wasn't what Martha would have wanted. I stepped inside. The foyer was crammed with strangers, men in tailored suits, women in glittering dresses. They talked loudly about stock options and venture capital. There must have been 30 people, maybe 40. I felt instantly out of place. I wore a clean flannel shirt and my best jeans. I looked around, searching for a familiar face. Where was Emily? Where was my brother, Robert? Where were James's parents? They weren't here. Not a single family member in sight. Just sharks in expensive suits. And I felt like I was bleeding in the water. I spotted Emily near the dining room. She wore a tight silver dress I'd never seen before. Her hair was swept up. Her smile looked painted on. Brittle. She was refilling champagne flutes. Her face flushed and stressed. She didn't look like my daughter. She looked like a hostess playing a part. "Emily," I called out. She turned, startled. "Dad, you're here." She didn't hug me. She usually hugged me. She stayed where she was, glancing nervously at the crowd. That hesitation was the first crack in the foundation. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetie." I held up the pie carrier. "Got Mom's apple cranberry. Still warm?" "Oh, Dad, that's wonderful," she said quickly. Her voice was high, tight. Just put it in the kitchen, okay? The caterers need the space." Caterers. Emily loved to cook. She had Martha's talent. The word hung in the air between us. A small betrayal, but it stung. It felt like she was erasing Martha, too. "It sure is busy," I said, trying to keep my voice light. The unease in my stomach was growing. "Who are all these people?" She leaned in close. The expensive perfume overwhelmed her usual lavender scent. "They're James's associates," she whispered. "Investors. He decided to combine Thanksgiving with a networking event. It's crucial for the startup. A networking event. On Thanksgiving." I swallowed hard. The unease hardened into something cold. Heavy. They were using this day, Martha's day, for money. But that wasn't the worst part. I walked toward the dining room. The long mahogany table I had restored myself was extended, covered in fine china, crystal goblets, elaborate, ugly floral arrangements that blocked the view. Every single seat was taken. 30 people, laughing, preparing to feast, in the house I paid for. I stood in the doorway. The pie carrier felt heavy. I was looking for a spot. A chair in the corner, a stool at the kitchen island. Anywhere, but there was nothing. That's when James saw me. He was at the head of the table, my table, holding court, a glass of expensive scotch in his hand. He excused himself with a charming smile and swaggered over. James always looked polished, handsome, ambitious. When he first met Emily, I thought he was good for her, confident, driven. I thought he would protect her. Now I realized he had simply consumed her. "Tom," he said. His voice was smooth, cold. He didn't smile. His eyes were hard. "Glad you could make it. Happy Thanksgiving, James." Quite the party. I tried to keep the edge out of my voice. I failed. "Yes, well, opportunity doesn't sleep," he said. He steered me away from the dining room, back toward the noisy foyer. He gripped my arm tightly, his fingers digging into my bicep. He was trying to move me, like a piece of furniture that didn't match the decor. "Looks like dinner is served," I said, nodding toward the table. I resisted the urge to pull my arm away. Where should I sit? James stopped. He looked me straight in the eye. The charm vanished. It was replaced by something dismissive, something ugly. "Look, Tom, I apologize for the confusion," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "This evening has evolved. It's strictly business now. We're closing a major deal tonight." I stared at him. The words didn't register. "What are you talking about?" "It's Thanksgiving. Emily invited me." He sighed, impatient, like I was slow. "I understand that, Tom. But as you can see, the table is full. We have investors here, people who can make or break my company." He leaned in closer. His breath was hot on my face. The moment of betrayal stretched out. The noise of the party seemed to swell. A woman laughed too loudly. James checked his expensive watch. He didn't want to be having this conversation. He wanted to be closing his deal. He looked at me like I was an obstacle, an inconvenience. "Frankly, Tom," he whispered, the words sharp as glass, "there's no room for you." The words hit me harder than any punch. No room for me. In my own house, the house I built for my daughter, the house I filled with memories of Martha. My ears rang. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I looked past him, at the table full of strangers, at my daughter. Emily was watching us from the kitchen doorway, her hands twisting in her silver dress. She saw it. She heard him, and she did nothing. That silence, that betrayal, it cut deeper than anything James could say. She chose him, right then and there. I felt a coldness spread through my chest, a numbness that froze the pain, the anger. I wasn't sad. I wasn't outraged. I was just done. James expected me to argue, to beg, to cause a scene. He was waiting for me to play the part of the embarrassing old man. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "I understand," I said quietly. My voice was steady. James looked surprised, then relieved. The shark smile returned. "Good, good. We'll send you home with some leftovers later." He patted my arm dismissively. "A doggy bag? A doggy bag," like I was a stray animal begging for scraps. He turned and rejoined his party. His laughter rang out, loud, triumphant. He thought he had won. He was wrong. I walked back to the kitchen. Emily rushed over. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Dad, I'm so sorry. James is just, he's under so much pressure. He didn't mean it. Lies." She always looked away when she lied. "It's okay, Emily," I said. My voice was distant, detached. I placed the apple cranberry pie on the counter, next to an array of elaborate desserts from the caterers. My homemade pie looked small, insignificant, just like me. "But Dad," her voice cracked. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetie." I walked out the front door, past the suits, the dresses, the fake laughter. The cold November air felt good against my hot face. I walked the 3 blocks to my truck. The silence of the deserted streets was a relief. I drove home, to the small apartment I had downsized to after giving them the house. The silence there was different, heavy, deafening. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one Martha and I had picked out together, the worn leather molded to my body. I thought about the years I spent working overtime, the weekends I missed, the calloused hands, the aching back, all for them. I thought about restoring that house. Every nail, every board, every coat of paint, a labor of love. And I thought about James's voice. "There's no room for you." They wanted to play business? Fine, we'll play business. The old contractor still had a few tools left in his belt. The next morning I woke up early. The sun was barely rising. Gray and pale pink. I didn't feel tired. I felt focused. I picked up the phone and called Michael. Michael was an old friend, a sharp real estate lawyer. We'd known each other 30 years. He handled my contracts back when I was building. He owed me a few favors. Tom, this is early, Michael said. His voice was gruff with sleep. Everything okay? I need your help, Michael. I need you to draft an eviction notice. There was a long pause. I could hear the click of his pen. Michael's nervous habit. Eviction? For who? Your tenants at the Elm Street property. No, I said. My voice was steady. For my daughter and my son-in-law. I want them out of the Victorian on Oak Avenue. Michael whistled softly. That's the house you restored. The one you poured everything into. What happened, Tom? They made it clear yesterday it's not my home. It's not a family home. It's a business asset. I took a deep breath. And I'm liquidating? Are you sure, Tom? This is Emily, your only daughter. The words hung in the air. Emily, the little girl who followed me around the workshop, her face smudged with sawdust. Emily, who cried in my arms when Martha died. This was the hardest choice I ever had to make. Preserving a fractured relationship or demanding respect. I knew this might break us forever, but I couldn't let it stand. If I did, I'd lose myself. I'm sure, I said. The words tasted like ash. They have 30 days. All right, Tom. I'll draw it up, have it served today. I'm sorry it came to this. So am I. Later that afternoon, the phone rang. I knew it was Emily. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. Dad? What is this? She cried. Her voice was shrill, hysterical. A sheriff came to the house. He handed James an eviction notice. Is this some kind of cruel joke? It's not a joke, Emily. My voice was calm. I had to remain calm. If I let the emotion in, I would crumble. The argument escalated quickly. But why? Because of yesterday, she pleaded. It's because of everything, Emily. Dad, I said I was sorry. James was stressed. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. He meant exactly what he said, I countered, keeping my voice low and steady. He made it clear his business comes before family. That's not true. He made it clear, I continued, pressing the point, that I am not welcome in the house I provided. But it was important for our future, she pleaded. Desperate. He's trying to build something for the children we want to have. The mention of grandchildren twisted the knife. The sting of her divided loyalty hurt more than James's insults. She was defending the man who humiliated me, and she was using my deepest hopes against me. His future seems very crowded, Emily, I said sharply. So crowded there's no room for me. Dad, please don't do this. If he wants to run a business empire, he can do it on his own dime, not mine. You can't just kick us out. This is our home. We've lived here for 3 years. Her voice was rising, edged with panic. It's my house, Emily. The deed is in my name, and I am taking it back. You have 30 days. I hung up the phone. My hand was shaking. Hearing the pain in her voice was the hardest part. But I had to stand firm. Respect wasn't optional. Family wasn't something you discarded when it was inconvenient. 2 days later, James showed up. He didn't knock. He pounded on the door, the sound echoing the quiet hallway. I opened it. He stood there, face red with rage, expensive suit rumpled. Tie loosened. He looked like a man not used to being told no. What the hell do you think you're doing? He snarled. He pushed his way into my apartment. No invitation. I believe I made myself clear in the notice, I said calmly. I stepped back. I didn't want a scene in the hallway. You can't evict us. We have rights. We have a verbal agreement, he shouted. He paced my small living room, a caged animal. You have the right to occupy the property for 30 days, I corrected him, my voice even. After that, you are trespassing, and any agreement we had was broken. At the Thanksgiving table. You old fool, he spat the words, the venom dripping from his voice. You think you can ruin me? I have a business to run. I have investments tied up in that house. A reputation. He slammed his fist on my small kitchen table. Coffee mugs rattled. Investments tied up in the house? I asked, narrowing my eyes. That phrase felt heavy, significant. He ignored me, lost in his rage. You are making a huge mistake. No, James. The mistake was trusting you, I said. The anger was breaking through the numbness. You should have thought about your reputation before you prioritized greed over family. It was one dinner. Are you really going to destroy our lives over one dinner? He threw his hands up, playing the victim. It wasn't about the dinner, James. It was about respect, gratitude, basic human decency. You showed me you have none of those. He glared at me, jaw clenched, eyes burning with hatred. We'll fight this, Tom. We'll take you to court. We'll drag your name through the mud. He leaned in close, threatening. We'll tell everyone you're a bitter, vindictive old man trying to control his daughter. The threat hit hard, a public smear campaign, the potential loss of Emily forever. But backing down would only confirm his control over her. It would validate his behavior. The law is on my side. The deed is in my name. You have no case. I pointed to the door. My hand was steady now. Get out. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. A photo of Martha, smiling brightly, tilted sideways. I straightened it. My fingers lingered on the glass. Martha. What would she think of all this? She would have told me to fight harder, and I realized the fight was just beginning. The next week was agonizing. Emily called every day, begging, accusing, crying. She was caught in the middle, torn, but she was making the wrong choice. You're tearing this family apart, Dad, she cried one evening. Her voice was hoarse. James is under so much pressure. His startup is on the verge of something huge. He's doing everything for me. Is he, Emily? Is he really doing it for you? Or for himself? For his ego? I asked, my voice heavy with sadness. How can you say that? He loves me. He provides for me. She genuinely believed his lies. She saw me as the villain. I had to break through the illusion, even if it meant hurting her. If he loves you, he wouldn't isolate you from your family, I argued. He wouldn't force you to choose. Think about it. Emily, when was the last time you saw your friends? When was the last time you painted? She used to love painting. She was talented, but her studio in the house was now James's home gym. She went silent. I knew I had struck a nerve. He says I need to focus on supporting him right now, she whispered, her voice small. I'm not trying to ruin your life, Emily. I'm trying to save it. She hung up on me. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. But I had planted a seed of doubt. I just hoped it would grow. James talked a big game, big deals, major investments, but I never saw results. Expensive cars, designer suits, lavish parties. Where was the money coming from? The startup was burning cash, not making it. And his comment about investments tied up in the house kept nagging at me. Something felt wrong, very wrong. I called Michael again. Michael, I need you to investigate James's business, assets, debts, investors, everything, and look specifically at any financial activity involving the house. Tom, that's dangerous territory, Michael warned. If he finds out, he could sue for harassment. He already threatened to drag my name through the mud. I have nothing left to lose, Michael, except the house. Just do it discreetly. While Michael started digging, I needed more information. I decided to call my brother, Robert. We hadn't talked much since the wedding. Robert never liked James. He saw through the charm right away. He always said James had hungry eyes. I needed someone else who saw the truth. I met Robert at his garage. He was wiping grease off his hands with a rag. The smell of oil and metal was familiar, comforting. Tom? You look like hell, Robert said, tossing the rag onto his workbench. What's going on? Emily sounded frantic when she called me. She called you? I asked, surprised. Yeah, begging me to talk some sense into you, saying you were kicking them out. Robert crossed his arms. So, are you? I am, I said. I told him everything, the Thanksgiving dinner, the investors, James's words. There's no room for you, Robert listened silently, his expression growing darker with every word. When I finished, he shook his head, disgusted. I knew it, he muttered. I told you, Tom. That kid is poison. He's a user. I should have listened, I admitted, the regret heavy in my chest. Robert, I need to ask you something. Did James ever approach you? For his business? Investments? Robert laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. Oh yeah. 6 months ago. He came here. The garage. looked so out of place in his $1,000 suit. What did he want? He gave me the whole pitch, Robert said, leaning against the '67 Mustang he was restoring. The slick presentation. Guaranteed returns. Ground floor opportunity. Said I'd be a fool to pass it up. And I held my breath. I needed to know if Robert had fallen for it too. And I told him to shove it, Robert said bluntly. I'm just a mechanic, Tom, but I know how to read a balance sheet. The numbers didn't add up. It smelled like a scam from a mile away. Relief washed over me. Robert was safe. What did he do when you said no? I asked. He got angry. Real ugly, Robert recalled, his eyes distant. Told me I was a small-town nobody who didn't understand high finance. Told me I'd regret missing out. Robert looked at me, his expression serious. He didn't like being challenged, Tom. And he seemed desperate, like he needed the money fast. Desperate. The word echoed in my mind. Robert confirmed my suspicions. James wasn't just ambitious, he was reckless. And he was targeting family. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows, and I had a feeling it was much darker than I imagined. I needed eyes on the ground. I needed to know what James was doing. The eviction deadline was approaching, and desperate people do desperate things. That evening, I drove to Oak Avenue. I parked my truck down the street where I had parked on Thanksgiving. I walked toward the Victorian. The lights were on. I saw shadows moving inside. I didn't want to confront them. I just wanted to observe, to feel the atmosphere. Evening, Tom? I jumped, startled. I hadn't seen her approaching. It was Mrs. Eleanor Vance, the neighbor across the street, an elderly woman who saw everything from behind her lace curtains. She was the neighborhood watch, whether we wanted one or not. She was wrapped in a heavy coat, walking her small, yappy dog. The dog sniffed at my boots. Trouble in paradise? She asked, her eyes bright with gossip. She always knew everything. You could say that, Eleanor, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. He's a strange one, that James. Always showing off. The new cars every few months. The expensive suits. Always trying to impress. He likes the finer things, I said vaguely. But you know what's odd? She continued, ignoring my comment. What's that, Eleanor? The cars that come here late at night, she whispered. Her eyes darted toward the house, then back at me. They aren't the fancy investor types, not the ones from the Thanksgiving party. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? What kind of cars? Dark sedans, tinted windows, the kind you see in movies. She shook her head disapprovingly. And the men who drive them, big men, mean-looking. They visit James, I asked, my voice urgent. Oh yes, she nodded vigorously. They pound on the door. Sometimes they shout. Happened last week. Woke me right up. Middle of the night. What did you see? James opened the door. He looked terrified. Tom, absolutely terrified. They talked for a few minutes. James kept shaking his head. Then one of the men grabbed him by the shirt, pushed him against the wall. My blood ran cold. Loan sharks. James wasn't just dealing with banks. He was dealing with dangerous people. Did you call the police? I asked. Oh no, she said, shocked at the suggestion. I don't want to get involved. But I thought you should know, Tom. That boy is trouble. And he's bringing trouble to our neighborhood. Thank you, Eleanor. You did the right thing telling me. I watched her walk away, the small dog pulling at the leash. The situation was worse than I thought. James was desperate. And he was dangerous. And Emily was in the middle of it. I had to get her out of there. Now, if this story is keeping you hooked, drop a subscribe. It was that realization that made me call Michael immediately. I told him what Robert and Eleanor had said. The failed investment pitch. The dangerous men visiting late at night. That changes things, Tom, Michael said, his voice serious. If he's involved with those kinds of people, we need to move faster. Much faster. What are you finding in the financial records? I asked, pacing my small apartment. It's a maze, Tom. Shell corporations. Offshore accounts. He's been moving money around like a magician. But the debts are real, and they are massive. Keep digging, Michael. We need leverage. We need the truth. A few days later, Michael called me back. His voice was grim. I heard the exhaustion in his tone. Tom, you need to sit down. I sat. My heart hammered in my chest. I knew this was it. The truth I had been searching for. The truth I dreaded. James's business is a house of cards, Michael said. His voice flat. It's a Ponzi scheme. Robert was right. He's been using new investor money to pay off old ones, funding his lifestyle with the difference. It explained everything. The Thanksgiving party wasn't a celebration. It was a desperate attempt to reel in new victims. Before the whole thing collapsed. How bad is it? I asked. It's collapsing,
Fashmill said.
He's leveraged to the hilt, multiple loans, and yes, the questionable lenders. Eleanor saw they are very real and very dangerous. He's defaulting on everything. He's drowning in debt. So where is the money coming from now? The cars? The lifestyle? I asked. I already suspected the answer. Investments tied up in the house. The words James had used during our confrontation echoed in my mind. That's the bad news, Tom, Michael said. His voice was heavy. He took out a massive second mortgage on the house. The Victorian, I felt like I'd been punched. The air rushed out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe. The room spun around me. He can't do that, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. The house is in my name. I never authorized it. He did it anyway, Michael said. Disgusted. He forged your signature on the loan documents. He used the house as collateral for a failing business loan. Forged. My signature. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. He created fake documents, Michael continued, his voice tight with anger, presented himself as the owner. The bank didn't do their due diligence. They were blinded by his charm. His promises of high returns. They fast-tracked the loan. The twist hit me hard. Nausea washed over me. This wasn't just about disrespect. This wasn't just about entitlement. This was fraud, grand larceny. James wasn't just ungrateful. He was a criminal, and he was destroying everything Martha and I had built. He had stolen the foundation right out from under us. How much? I whispered. My voice trembled. $500,000, Michael said. And the payments are late. If he defaults, the bank will seize the house. Your house, Tom. I wasn't just taking the house back. I was saving it, and I had to save Emily from the wreckage. She was blinded by the illusion. But that illusion was about to shatter. There's more, Michael said, his voice dropping even lower. Given the scale of the Ponzi scheme and the bank fraud crossing state lines, I had to contact the authorities. The FBI. The FBI. My head was spinning. This was bigger than I could have imagined. It felt like a tidal wave was about to crash down on us. The FBI? I repeated, stunned. They were already investigating him, Tom, Michael explained. He was on their radar. Your evidence connects the dots. The forged mortgage. The Ponzi scheme. The offshore accounts. They are moving quickly. Who is handling the case? Agent Sarah Jenkins. She's sharp. Relentless. She'll be in touch. Agent Jenkins. A new player in the game. And she was on my side. The cavalry was coming, but I had to secure the house first. I had to toot my assets before the storm hit. I needed to act fast, before the bank seized the house, before James realized the walls were closing in. I drove to the bank that held the loan. A sleek, modern building downtown, glass and steel. I felt a surge of adrenaline. The fight was on. I asked to speak to the manager, a Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis was a nervous man, receding hairline, sweaty palms. He looked uncomfortable in his expensive suit. He kept clicking his pen, the sound grating on my nerves. Mr. Davis, my name is Thomas Jameson. I placed the deed on his desk. Official. Stamped. Sealed. I believe your bank holds a second mortgage on my property at 15 Oak Avenue. He checked his computer, his eyes flicking nervously. Yes, we do. A home equity loan for $500,000, approved 3 months ago. Mr. James presented all the necessary documents. I'd like to see those documents, I said. Calm. The rage simmered beneath the surface. Because I never signed them. I am the sole owner. Mr. Davis looked at the deed. The computer, me. His face turned pale. The color drained from his cheeks. He realized the mistake his bank had made. A massive, career-ending mistake. There must be some error, he stammered, pulling at his collar. The clicking of the pen stopped. Mr. James assured us, "There is an error," I said. My voice hardened. "And your bank made it. My son-in-law committed fraud. Your bank enabled him." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "I suggest you start a fraud investigation immediately, quietly, before this blows up in your face." I paused, letting the words sink in. "The FBI is already involved. Agent Jenkins will be in contact. You might want to cooperate." The mention of the FBI terrified him. He nodded mutely, scrambling for the phone. The bank scrambled, desperate to avoid a scandal, desperate to cover their tracks. They agreed to nullify the loan, to cooperate fully with the FBI. The house was safe. But Emily wasn't. Now I had to focus on my daughter. I had to make her see the truth. Break the spell. This was the hardest part. I drove to the house. It was quiet. The expensive cars were gone. The facade of success was crumbling. I used my key. I found Emily in the kitchen, packing boxes. The beautiful kitchen I designed for her, now cluttered with cardboard and newspaper. "What are you doing?" I asked. "James says we have to move quickly," she said. Her voice was dull, lifeless. She didn't look at me. Wrapping glasses in newspaper, mechanical. "He found a new place," she continued. "An apartment downtown, smaller. He says it's temporary, until the next round of funding."
He was still lying to her, still maintaining the illusion, even as the walls were closing in. It was pathological. "Emily, honey, listen to me."
I walked closer, putting my hand on her shoulder. She flinched. The reaction stung. "James is in trouble, serious trouble. There is no next round of funding." "I know. You're kicking us out," she said bitterly, finally looking up, eyes red, swollen. "You're ruining everything." "No, it's more than that." I took a deep breath. This was going to hurt. He forged my signature. He used this house as collateral, $500,000. She stared at me, confusion clouding her eyes. "He's broke, Emily, and he's about to be arrested. The FBI is investigating him." She froze. A glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor. She didn't notice. "I don't believe you," she whispered, shaking her head.
Denial.
"You're just saying that to break us up. You've always hated James." Despite the evidence, the eviction, the truth staring her in the face, she still chose him. My heart broke all over again. I needed undeniable proof, something to shatter her denial completely. "It's the truth, Emily. The bank has the forged documents. The FBI is involved." I looked around the kitchen. Something felt off. James was meticulous, organized, but the kitchen was a mess. Drawers pulled open, papers scattered on the counter. It looked like someone had been searching, frantically, desperately. "Where is James?" I asked. "Urgent. Upstairs. Packing his office." He said he needed to secure important documents. He wasn't packing. He was preparing to run. I knew it. I felt it in my bones. I noticed a stack of papers near the trash can, partially hidden under newspapers. I picked them up. Loan documents, bank statements, massive withdrawals, and tucked inside them a small rectangular piece of paper, a boarding pass. My blood ran cold. The final betrayal. "Emily, look at this." My voice was barely a whisper. I handed her the boarding pass. A one-way ticket. Cayman Islands. Dated for tomorrow. In James's name only. Emily stared at the ticket, eyes wide with shock, color draining from her face. Her reality shattered, crumbling into dust. He was leaving me?" she whispered, trembling, barely audible. "He was going to run. He was going to run, Emily," I said gently, "and leave you to deal with the mess. The debt. The scandal. The fallout. The FBI." Tears streamed down her face. Silent. Devastating. I thought he loved me. I thought he was doing everything for us. I gave him everything. "I know, sweetie, I know." I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight as she sobbed, her body shaking with the force of her grief. I held her like when she was a little girl. This wound was deeper than anything I could fix, but I would be there while she healed. The healing had finally begun. The 30 days were up. Eviction day. The house felt cold, empty, stripped of its warmth. Most of the furniture was gone. Moved by James, likely sold for cash to finance his escape. But he hadn't escaped yet. The bank froze his accounts. The FBI flagged his passport. He was trapped. I arrived at the house with Michael and 2 uniformed officers. Agent Jenkins met us there, sharp, professional, dressed in a dark pantsuit. She nodded at me, her expression grim. "He's still inside, Mr. Jameson," she said, her voice clipped. "We have the perimeter secured. He's not going anywhere." The silence was heavy, the calm before the final storm. We walked up the stone path, the path I had laid. The irony was bitter. We entered the house. The silence was broken only by our footsteps on the hardwood floors. I had polished so many times, the climax erupted like a sudden storm. We found James upstairs in his office, stuffing belongings into a leather briefcase. Cash, jewelry, anything he could grab. He looked up, startled, a rat caught in a trap. "Tom, you're early," he said, trying to sound nonchalant. The smooth charm returned, even now, when the game was over. "It's time to go, James," I said. "Cold, hard. I'm just finishing up. Be out of your hair in a minute." He snapped the briefcase shut, eyes darting toward the window, contemplating an escape. He tried to brush past us. Agent Jenkins blocked his path. "It's not that simple, Mr. Stevenson," she said, her voice sharp. That's when Emily walked in, pale, eyes red, but standing tall, spine straight, gaze fixed on James. She held the plane ticket. "Were you going to say goodbye, James?" she asked. Her voice trembled but was strong, laced with steel. James froze. He looked at the ticket. The officers. Agent Jenkins standing impassively by the door. Emily, he knew it was over. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "Emily, baby, I can explain," he started, taking a step toward her. Hand outstretched, practiced sincerity dripping from his voice. "Explain what?" she shouted. Pain and anger, grief transforming into rage. "How you lied, how you used me, how you stole from my father, how you were going to abandon me. I did it for us, for our future. I was going to send for you," he insisted. The lies came easily, smoothly, even now. "No," she screamed. The sound echoed in the empty room. "You did it for you. You never loved me. You just saw me as an easy mark. Someone whose inheritance you could steal." The mask slipped. James's face twisted into an ugly sneer. The charming facade crumbled. The monster underneath revealed. "You are so naive, Emily," he spat. "So desperate for validation. You practically begged me to marry you, and your father?" He glared at me. "He was a fool, a sentimental old man who practically gave me the house. He deserved it." "You're wrong, James," I said, cold as ice. "I didn't give you the house. I lent it, and now I'm taking it back, and I'm taking my daughter back." James turned to Emily, one last twist of the knife. "You'll regret this, Emily. You'll be nothing without me. You're weak, just like your father." "No," she said, shaking her head. A small, sad smile touched her lips. "I'll be free." James grabbed his briefcase, tried to push past us. "I'm leaving. You can't stop me." "Actually, we can," Agent Jenkins said, stepping forward, pulling out her handcuffs. Her voice was sharp, authoritative. "James Stevenson, you are under arrest for wire fraud, bank fraud, and grand larceny." James struggled, shock and fear, arrogance replaced by terror. "You can't do this. I have lawyers. I have connections. I'll ruin you all." The officers handcuffed him, led him out of the house, his shouts echoing down the hallway. He looked back at me one last time, eyes burning with impotent rage. I felt nothing but relief, profound, exhausted relief. It was finally over. The fallout was messy, painful. The FBI investigation revealed the extent of the fraud. He had swindled dozens of investors, wiped out life savings. Robert was right. The numbers were staggering. James was facing decades in prison. The scandal was all over the news. The lavish parties, the forged mortgage, the Ponzi scheme. It was a media frenzy. The men Eleanor saw, they were arrested too. Turns out James had borrowed from the mob. He was lucky the FBI got to him first. Emily filed for divorce. It was difficult. Public scrutiny, whispers, stares. She had to deal with the realization that her marriage was a lie, that the man she loved was a monster. But she handled it with strength, grace, a resilience I hadn't realized she possessed. She started painting again. Her canvases filled with dark, swirling colors at first, but slowly the light started creeping back in. I was proud of her. Robert came by often, helping her find her footing again, family sticking together. The house was quiet now, empty of James's toxic influence. His greed, his lies, it needed repairs. Physically and emotionally, the walls echoed with the ghosts of the past. The betrayal, but it was safe. It was ours. The bank, facing scrutiny from the FBI for their negligence, apologized formally. Mr. Davis lost his job. A few weeks later, Emily and I sat in the empty kitchen. We were eating the apple cranberry pie I had brought for Thanksgiving. It had been sitting in the freezer, forgotten in the chaos. We sat at a small card table, the grand dining room empty. The silence stretched between us. But it was a comfortable silence now, healing. "It's good pie, Dad," Emily said quietly, her voice still fragile, but stronger. "Your mom's recipe," I replied, smiling softly. The memory of Martha filled the room with warmth. We ate in silence, the taste of cinnamon and cranberries filling the void left by the pain. "I'm sorry, Dad," Emily whispered, looking down at her hands, the engagement ring gone, a pale band of skin on her finger. "I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I defended him. I was so blinded by the illusion of happiness." "It's okay, sweetie. He was convincing. He fooled a lot of people. He fooled me, too, for a while. But I should have known," she said, her voice cracking. The regret still raw. "I should have stood up for you. On Thanksgiving. When I stayed silent, that was the worst thing I've ever done. You know now, that's what matters. And you stood up for yourself when it counted." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We're okay, Emily. We're going to be okay." I looked around the empty house. It felt too big, too full of bad memories, too haunted by the ghost of the life she thought she had. "Maybe we should sell it," I said. The thought surprised me. Start fresh. Somewhere new, smaller place. Maybe a condo near the water. Emily looked up, surprised. "But you restored this house, Dad. You loved it. It was your dream." "I restored it for family," I said, squeezing her hand. "But a house is just wooden bricks. It's the people inside that make it a home. Family is what matters, and I realized something through all this." "What's that?" "It's not the size of the house that counts. It's the love within it, the respect, the gratitude. As long as we have each other, we have everything we need." Emily smiled. A genuine, warm smile I hadn't seen in years. A smile that reached her eyes, erasing the shadows. "You're right, Dad. We have everything we need." We finished our pie. I had lost a house for a little while, but I had gained my daughter back. That was a trade I would make any day. Sometimes you have to tear things down to the studs to rebuild them stronger. And sometimes the sweetest victory is a simple meal shared with the ones you love. At a table where there is always room for you. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.